and nothing can go wrong. Oh no, it all went wrong. Now I'm really sad, but Mom says it ain't that bad.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see in that intro, a lot has happened. A lot has gone wrong since the last time we chatted with you. And even though I'm going to need to cut a lot of corners to tell this story, it's going to be a long one. So I've put channel markers here on the red line. You can just scroll over that and jump to some sections that interest you and just annihilate our viewer retention statistics. For the rest of you, grab some popcorn and a cold snack. Get yourself a nice seat. When we left you last, we had just left Medellin, took some pretty rough and rocky roads towards San Roque, where we filmed the MoFi 5500 video. From there, we headed further east through some beautiful country towards Barachara, where we stayed on this beautiful ledge overlooking the city. It's also very popular among paragliders. From there, we headed south to meet up with our friends Ulf and Berna. They were hanging out near Los Santos, which is a popular rock climbing hotspot. So we chilled with them for about a week, filmed a members only video about rock climbing. You can click up here and check that out if you like. Then we drove around that canyon to the other side to the national park Chicamocha, I think is how you say it. There we rode the Teleferico cable car through the lush mountainsides, down into the valley, across the river, and then up the other side. But we were short on time, so as soon as we got there, we turned around, jumped back in the cable car, and took the ride back, looking the other way.
Oh man. That is a drop.
It's a really great way to see the landscape, almost as good as flying, which is also an option.
Risky business.
Doing it for the YouTubes. From there, we were invited to Barachara, where we made friends with Corina and Rafael. It's a beautiful little town that requires the buildings all to be painted in the original style, so no brightly colored signs or buildings or anything like that. Really beautiful town to wander around, and of course there's lots of beautiful restaurants and shops to visit. From there we drove to the town of El Cocuy, which is bordering the national park of El Cocuy, which of course is bordering the Venezuelan border. So right on the east side of Colombia. And this is where our story gets interesting. Right after we arrived the next morning, I went to put on a pot of coffee, and about halfway through, the power shuts off. And so of course I checked the breakers and the GFCI, everything. There's no more power. So we finished breakfast on our backup propane stove, and then after breakfast I pulled out the inverter, and I could pretty quickly smell that all the magic smoke had gotten out. Of course, being in a remote place like that, there's nothing to do but pull it apart and hope for the best, hope that it's something simple. And no surprise, once I was in there, there's a big burnt spot with a bunch of burnt parts. This was actually a war horse of an inverter. It was built in 1999 and originally commissioned in an ambulance, and then after that was decommissioned, I bought it used, and I think I've had it for 10 years or so, and it's only rated at 1800 watts, but it'll put out 2500 watts all day, no complaining. It doesn't even buzz the buzzer for overload, so it owes me nothing, but it's a shame to see it go down. So I opened it up, and as I started the post-mortem, I was testing parts and cleaning everything as I went along, and I made a list of all the parts that we needed, and then ordered that from Mauser Electronics and had that shipped to Colombia. But that was going to take a few weeks. The land on which we were staying was owned by an eco hotel that had just started up 4 years earlier, and so I'd offered to make them a little promotional video that they can use on social media. You can check that out up here if you like. So we waited there for about a week, acclimating, building up our red blood cell count, and waiting for our friends Ulf and Berna, who were going to join us for the next leg of the journey. Once they arrived, we did some work on both of our vehicles, just little odds and ends projects. Ulf was having some problems with his solar and charge controller, so put a couple days in on that, as well as some other things. And then about a week later, the parts for the inverter arrived in Bogata city, where one of our YouTube subscribers, Juan, received them and then shipped them to us in El Cocuy. He sent them by a very, very fast mule because it was there in 2 days. So having been without power for a week, I got to work as quick as I could, stripping out not only the damaged driver, but the 4 adjacent drivers, 4 drivers in total, because I figured if I'm in there, I might as well do it right. And now with all those parts in, all it's left to do is install all these very static sensitive parts. There we have all the transistors in. Now just need to put on the warning electrical shock hazard heatsink.
Everything is going to work out so well, and I'm going to use my oven and sous vide.
My mobile ultrasonic cleaning station. So it took me almost 2 days to do all the repairs, and hopes were high that I'd managed a successful repair. Alrighty, got her kinda half banjo twined together. Moment of truth. Possibly loud crack. Filming.
Filming. Nothing?
Nothing. It powered up, the screen came on just as it did before. The display showed everything was operational, but there was no output on the AC outputs. So, as a little diversion to the main story, it was at this time I was helping out one of our channel members, one of our subscribers. He has a fairly elaborate Victron system with chargers, inverters, solar, all that stuff. And he was having some problems because it wouldn't charge his lithium batteries. So I offered to remote desktop into his laptop and get on the VE bus and see if I could remotely diagnose what his problem was. Specifically, it was the 3 kilowatt Victron Multi-Plus inverter that was giving the issue. It was not correctly configured from the installer who put it in, or perhaps by a firmware update it reset some of the settings, but it wasn't charging. But I did manage to get everything going for him. Everything was charging and he was happy as a clam. So as we were saying our goodbyes and logging off, I was just venting with him a little bit how I was happy that I managed to make this video chat and remote desktop and help him out, but it required running our Honda generator just to power my laptop and the Starlink internet. And that was that. The call ended and he said he wanted to give me a little something for helping for the couple hours of work I'd put in. And so I gave him my PayPal email address, and I expected nothing more than a token of appreciation for a couple hours work. But the email I got blew me away. Him and his wife offered to put up the money for us to buy a new inverter. In fact, the same inverter he's running, the 3 kilowatt Multi-Plus, and wanted to help us out with that. So, such a blessing to have members like that. But getting that inverter to Colombia is another story. As you can tell, the story's getting long enough already. Suffice to say, I couldn't get one here from any of the dealers that had it in stock, and I had to jump through all kinds of hoops, finally, I was able to get something ordered, but it would be 2 weeks before it would be in Bogata, and that was tight for our timeline because our visas in Colombia are up in about 3 weeks at that point. So getting back to the main story here now. From there, we drove down to the town of El Cocuy, where we needed to go to the park office and register for a permit and extraction insurance and watch their infotainment video outlining all the rules for the park. It was actually closed for a really long time, and they've only recently opened sections of it back to the public with rules that need to be followed, which of course we did. So after we had all that sorted, we drove a few hours east up some rough and fun roads to the entrance of the National Park El Cocuy, to the trailhead of the Ritacuba. Unfortunately, when we arrived there, the Overland pin, which we intended to stay at, a rental cabana facility, was all shut down, gates locked, nobody there. So we walked a few hundred meters back down the road there to the park ranger's office, and he got the owners on the phone, which of course he knew, and we arranged that we would cut off the locks and let ourselves in. And there we spent a few days acclimating to the elevation, went for a few hikes down the road, through the clouds, and were amazed by the cool and weird plants that grow at that elevation. It's the morning of the hike, We're currently at 4,000 meters elevation, and we're hiking to the Ritacuba Glacier up here at 5,000 meters. Let's go. The hike starts out pretty easy with a fairly easy warm-up through the valley, but pretty quickly we start to climb in elevation. Our guide's name was Carlos, and he was the perfect blend of informative, encouraging, and quiet. High difficulty. Doesn't show it, but we're climbing pretty slippery.
Oh, but Ulf's there actually jumping. Up we go. Alright, this is actually pretty hard. I would say it's harder than our catch and go video, which, if you haven't seen, go check it out. Volcanoes, amazing. That's my shameless plug for another video. All right, let's keep on going.
As the elevation got higher and higher, the less I was willing to speak. I needed to focus on my blood oxygen saturation. Well, I don't know what altitude we're at now, but we're well above the clouds. Unfortunately, it's been raining at about midday lately, and so that's putting added pressure on us to hustle.
This is... Hi.
As we got closer and closer to the glacier, the number of plants soon dwindled, and there is nothing left to give these video clips scale. The enormous boulders on the horizon look nothing more than pebbles.
Mountain.
But I felt accomplished enough knowing that we'd made it to the old end of the trail, the sign where the glacier used to be when they built it.
Ta-da! Yay! Okay, we are reaching the final point for us for today. Let me show you. Here we are, guys. Ta-da! Ta-da! Not too bad.
Not too shabby.
Wow, wow, wow.
Very cool. You can see the giant boulders up there that have been broken away and then slid down. The giant crevasses. I could probably fall into that one. Did I mention it's cold? It's like 3 degrees above freezing.
All right, guys, this is the end. We got a couple hours back down. Special shout out to our members. Thank you, thank you, thank you, you guys. Without you, we could not be doing what we're doing still, so thank you very much.
We're in the clouds, but over where our trucks are is in the sun, so that's good news. Well, we're out of the clouds. This polished granite is super slick, but that's okay. Oh, I just got 2 raindrops. Raindrop, time to hustle. Well, we managed to outrun the rain for an hour or so, but now our trail is a river. And we still got a ways to go. We're over here. I thought our friends had given up and gone back because, you know, their old age and such, but that crazy guy, he summited the Ritacuba Blanco. And now caught up to us. And we just need to go a bit further. And we outran the rain, I should mention also. The next day we drove the mountain roads towards the trailhead of our next hike. What a treat to see these vast, nearly untouched mountains driving through the clouds.
looked here, I could film from over there.
And I you.
Yeah.
That was exactly my idea. As you've probably noticed, it was about this time that Ulf and Berna's truck started smoking pretty badly. To be fair, both of our truck's diesel engines tended to smoke quite a bit on startup at these cold temperatures and at these high elevations. But this was different. This wasn't clearing up.
What's better than one drone?
2 drones!
2 drones! Can't see them.
I need
They're
to-
there.
Ulf told me that he'd noticed a decline in power over the last 6 months, but it was getting bad quick. When we arrived at the next trailhead, we checked over what we could. The air filter was clean and mostly dry. The fuel was clear, had no water in it. And other than an injector he knew was kind of going bad, we couldn't really find any problems. And so whatever it was would need to wait until we got to Bogata, 400 kilometers to the west. So we were camped at the trailhead of the Devil's Pulpit, a 22-kilometer hike that takes you up over 5,000 meters elevation, and there is, of course, the Devil's Pulpit, a giant outcropping of rock that sticks up above the glaciers that surround it. Ulf and Berna had a wonderful time, or so they said. And while we did catch a few glimpses of the pulpit sticking up through the clouds, Kara and I decided to sit this one out because of a previous ankle injury and her sore knee from a fall some days earlier. From there, we needed to make our way towards Bogata fast. Probably 12 or more hours driving on mostly decent dirt roads. They're decent enough given the remote circumstances, but they can be slow going because you need to be cautious of the soft edges of these narrow roads.
Not so good.
You're okay.
Jason's taking her, coming in hot here.
Easy.
At this point, Ulf was in the lead, and we were on a narrow road, and he had just passed a horse that was tied on a long lead, and it was a very reactive horse, and he started jumping and being quite perturbed. And so we moved to the right side of the road to give him a little bit of room.
Oh man, we fell in. We're in trouble. I don't know.
didn't see that.
Oh man, oh no.
Hey horsey, did you cause the problem? I guess, huh?
I didn't see the hole, and I was trying to avoid the
We've
horse.
seen last minute actually. Oh, you are completely in.
I think nothing we can damage here on the differential.
We fell in a little bit on this hole. We're on the diff. You can see that's holding us in place. I'm happy you're here.
What's that thing?
Easy peasy.
Oh yeah! This is the hole where he had been.
Well, that was easy.
Is it easy to fix something?
Right here. See? There, that's what got damaged.
What is called?
Just
My
the valve
got torn off.
right here.
Yeah.
For scale.
I jammed on the brakes when I saw it.
I didn't see it at all.
Yeah, there we are. That's good scale. Oh man.
Oh well, no valve.
You were the culprit.
I fell in the rut because I was trying to avoid this kind of nervous horse.
Yeah.
As we continued to make our way west, our route was blocked several times by landslides and other roadblocks, and we needed to backtrack and take less than ideal routes on roads that aren't even on maps.
All right, so we got a lot going on today. Ulf had to rescue us. And now we have to rescue him because it seems as though he has an injector that's going and he can't make it up this hill, so we gotta pull him. And to just put some icing on the cake, unfortunately the road into town has been blocked by a road slide, so we have to do this road. We don't have any other choice, so here we go. Oh yeah. So that was no problem. Looks like we have another hill to go and we're gonna have to pull them up that one too. Well, I think we have a few more hills to go. But the current problem is because we just fell into that hole, we have no reliable air tank and our solar keeps on popping out. So we gotta ratchet strap it. We're both filming. Hello.
By using small amounts of throttle, the driver is being gentle on his vehicle and, just as important, he's being considerate of the surface on which he is traveling. Drop.
Don't go too far, Jason.
Jason, don't go.
I think pulling would be faster. When we arrived at the next town, Ulf's suspicions were partially confirmed. The low quality diesel that he'd filled into his tank at the coast had reached its cloud point in the cold temperatures where we were, and the paraffin wax was solidifying in the fuel lines and had plugged up his fuel filters.
What do you think of that?
Smells good.
Spoiler alert, fast forward a week or so, and Ulf and Berna have made it to Bogata, to a proper diesel mechanic shop, and they opened up the turbo and found that the previous mechanic in Costa Rica had dropped a worm drive clamp from the intercooler into the intake, which has now been sucked up into the turbo and eaten it away. So obviously they needed to have their turbo rebuilt, repaired, rebalanced. They've also got a new set of injectors and high pressure injection pumps lined up. Anyway, back to our story. A few more hours to the west and we were passing through a small city, uphill on a 4-lane freeway, and suddenly I lose all throttle control. No check engine light. Check engine light. I put the 4x4 transfer case in low and managed to use our PTO controller from when the truck was a crane to limp us up off the hill and down the road onto a little side street where we could tear into it. So for those that don't know, this pedal is completely electronic, drive by wire. So after some testing and Google searching, it was found that it can sometimes go intermittent. And so I opted to cut open the sensor and try and clean the sensor elements. Brake pedal. Gas pedal, I mean. Diesel pedal. So we drilled some holes in the side and I injected some electrical contact cleaner and actuated it a little bit. That didn't work.
This is the Boy Scout method.
Yep.
What's your method? German Boy Scouts? So after a couple hours of trying what we could, I went with Ulf in his truck to try and find an auto wrecker or an electrical automotive parts place, but to no avail. There are no 7.3 diesels in South America, thus no parts. So we drove back to the truck to try and figure out and fix whatever was making it intermittent. Sometimes it would work, most of the time not. I noticed that if I put some extra pressure on the little brass wipers, it would work. So I used some stainless steel safety wire that we got from FloodX and put some pressure on the wiper arm with that, just to keep it in contact with the PCB. And while that worked a lot better, it took a lot of fiddling and adjusting of that little wire to get it to be halfway reliable. I have nothing here. See, Ulf? But I managed to get it going somehow. We made it to our next camp spot where we met a bunch of overlanders who let me vent and give me some time to catch my breath and recompose myself. So in an effort to get something a little more reliable, I took apart our old LED light dimmer, and it had a potentiometer with a built-in on-off switch. And this is in essence exactly what the sensor in the original pedal is. It uses the on-off switch for idle validation and the potentiometer, of course, for throttle advance. I then modeled the critical mechanical dimensions of the original pedal, and then in SolidWorks drew up this rack and pinion gear train, as well as the brackets required to affix the potentiometer to the original pedal, And then of course I 3D printed everything and put it together. Now on the road, of all the hundreds and hundreds of things I've printed for ourselves or other travelers to repair something on the road using the 3D printer, this is by far the one I'm most happy about, because there's no other way I could have got this going that I can think of still. In fact, we're completely dependent on that hack job now, because I later found that that printed circuit board is actually glass, and it completely shattered on me, so there's no hope of getting that going again. So anyway, after I got the engine diagnostic software all connected and verified that I've adjusted that idle validation switch to 10% of the throttle sweep, I was confident enough that I had a solution, and we were on our way to Bogata. Of course, Bogata is a huge city with 12.5 million people. There should be a shop for almost everything that you need. So a huge thank you to Juan of Overland Sally. Check him out on Instagram. He lives very close to the city, and he was going in anyway. And so he spent nearly 2 full days driving me around the city to all the little shops where I needed to go to get some odds and ends. First, we stopped in the electronic district, where I picked up a selection of bits and bobs, switches, relays, micro switches, and most importantly, linear potentiometers, in case I need to rebuild or fabricate a better fuel accelerator pedal. We also tried to find an electronics repair place that could handle the repair of my original Xantrax inverter. Went to a few places. Hopefully they can get that going, and that can be inherited by another Overlander coming through in the future. And speaking of inverters, after weeks of infuriating emails with Victron dealers, we finally managed to get the Multiplus 3000 watt inverter imported into Colombia, and we went to the reseller and picked it up. What a relief it is to have that in hand finally. We also hit up the truck and heavy machinery district in an effort to find a shop who could give me some answers, solid answers, about our rear suspension problems. Now I hear you, Tom Dudley, #1 subscriber and channel member. He's fairly sure that it's my rear shackle hangers, where the shackles mount to the frames. He says they need to be moved back quite a bit, and I don't doubt you, but I want to hit this from every angle. So we went to a bunch of spring and suspension specialists and tried to get one of everything lined up, one of every opinion, see what the consensus is, what the best thing to do is, what all the best things to do are. So I did look into bronze bushings and the greasable bolts with the grease zerk built in, and unfortunately nothing off the shelf is going to drop in and fit. So I would need to have something custom machined, and there just wasn't time to do it this time. At another suspension shop, some old timer said that bronze is not going to fix it, and that his special polyurethane bushings were the answer. And so they're cheap enough. I picked up a set of those. I also looked into upsizing our shock absorbers in the rear. Our original Rancho 9000 XLs are leaking, perhaps overloaded, and so I looked into getting some shock absorbers intended for big 18-wheeler trucks. Another old-timer suspension expert told me that none of the above is going to solve my problem, and that I need completely new leaf spring packs built. And we'd probably need to sleep in his shop for 2 days because it was a fair amount of work. And so that wasn't the answer I wanted either. So unfortunately, no joy on the spring front. On one of our stops for Juan, he needed to go to the fabric and sewing district for supplies. His company, Overland Sally, makes all kinds of pouches and bags and protective covers of fabric for all sorts of overlanding needs. So we went there to get some stuff for him. But while we were there, I spotted some foil-backed insulation material. So I got $5 worth of that. And then the next night, I cut that up and then wrapped up our water heater, trying to eke out a few more hours of hot water from our solar-powered hot water heater. And while we were in Bogata, I got a handful of new activated block carbon filters, as well as a 0.8 micron ceramic filter, and a couple of UV bulbs for our water sterilizer. And especially now, since we've commissioned our rooftop water collection system, that also now goes into our drinking water system. So our on-staff molecular microbiologist specializing in infectious disease, she said it was a good idea. So from Bogata, we have to make haste fast to the south. It's about 20 or 24 hours of driving, although the roads in the main Pan Am are a lot better. We can hit 6th gear for once. Double-digit hours to get out of the country, get into Ecuador, and while we can move fast on these nicer roads, it's not always guaranteed because of road closures due to landslides, which are common this time of year, and other construction causing delays. Again, a massive thank you to our supporting channel members, and to everyone else, thank you for your patience. It's been a bit of a dry spell for our public facing videos and even our members only videos, although there have been a few more. Not nearly as many as I hope there could be, that I think there should be. So thank you for your patience. It was just a little bit difficult with so many problems compounding on each other, and sometimes in the heat of the moment when I need to get stuff done and fix the problem, stuff doesn't always get filmed, and so that makes telling these stories a little bit harder. Much like this one, it got to be quite a long story of compounding problems, so that makes it harder to scab together a video in the end. A good example of that is our new inverter install. We got it, of course, and then had to hit the road and get moving, and so I ended up installing it, or halfway installing it, on the side of the road in a farmer's field in the rain, in the dark. And so these few clips of that installation is all there is. So that's going to be it for this Netflix special length edition. Thanks for tagging along. Thanks for your patience. Thanks to all of our supporting channel members, especially the member who gave us power again. You know who you are, and you're a legend. Thank you so very much. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.